Alina Moore learned the exact sound an eviction notice made when it slid under a door at 6:42 on a Tuesday morning. It wasn't dramatic. No pounding, no raised voices, just the soft scrape of paper against cheap wood followed by silence. The kind of silence that sat heavy in the chest, waiting to be acknowledged. She stood in her tiny kitchen, one sock on, one sock off, staring at the envelope like it might apologize if she ignored it long enough. The kettle on the stove clicked angrily, forgotten. Her phone buzzed in her hand, another reminder, past due, final notice. Alina exhaled slowly and folded the paper with careful precision as if neatness could soften reality. She was late already, again. Her laptop bag sat by the door, frayed at the seams, holding a resume she had revised so many times she could recite it in her sleep. Strong verbs, clean formatting, no mention of the loan she'd co-signed for her father. No explanation for the medical bills that had quietly eaten her savings alive. No space for excuses. The elevator in her building was broken, as usual, so she took the stairs two at a time, heart racing more from panic than exertion. By the time she reached the street, the city was already awake, horns blaring, coffee carts steaming, people moving with purpose, people who looked like they knew where they were going. She didn't. Her job, if it could still be called that, paid just enough to keep her afloat and just little enough to ensure she stayed that way. Freelance work, temporary contracts, always almost stable, always one unexpected bill away from disaster. Her phone buzzed again. This time it wasn't a reminder, unknown number. She almost ignored it, but desperation had a way of changing habits. "Hello," she said, breathless. "Alina Moore," a woman's voice said crisply, not a question. "This is Vivian Hart from Blackwell Private Staffing. We reviewed your application." Alina stopped walking. "Yes," she said carefully. "Yes, of course. We have a position," Vivian continued, efficient and unhurried. "High-level executive assistant, immediate placement." Alina's grip tightened on her phone. I didn't think, I know my experience is more." "Your experience is sufficient," Vivian cut in. "The compensation is substantial." That word landed differently, substantial. Vivian continued before Alina could interrupt. "The role requires discretion, flexibility, and long hours. There are strict confidentiality agreements. The client is particular." Alina swallowed. "Who is the client?" There was a pause, not long, just long enough to matter. "Mr. Adrian Vale." Alina felt it then, the shift, the quiet click in her chest. Everyone knew the name. Adrian Vale didn't give interviews. He didn't attend galas unless his presence moved markets. His companies bought failing empires and rebuilt them into something sharper, colder, unstoppable. Articles called him brilliant. Others called him ruthless. Most agreed on one thing: untouchable. "I'm not sure I'm what he's looking for," Alina said, honesty slipping out before fear could stop it. Vivian's tone remained neutral. "Mr. Vale values competence, nothing more, nothing less." That should have been reassuring. It was. "When would this start?" Alina asked. "Today." Alina laughed softly, the sound brittle. "Today? Yes, you would be working directly under him, private office, limited staff access." Directly under him, her stomach tightened. "And the pay?" she asked, even though she already knew she wouldn't say no. Vivian named the figure. Alina closed her eyes. It was more than she made in 3 months, enough to stop the eviction, enough to breathe again, enough to fix the hole her life had quietly fallen into. "What are the conditions?" she asked. Another pause, this one heavier. "You will be expected to prioritize his schedule above your own," Vivian said. "Personal time will be limited. Emotional involvement is strictly prohibited." Alina opened her eyes. "Emotional involvement, Mr. Vale does not tolerate complications," Vivian said simply. "This is a professional arrangement. If you are seeking warmth or mentorship, this is not the role for you." Alina thought of her apartment, the envelope, the sound it made against the floor. "I understand," she said. "Do you accept?" She hesitated, not because she wanted to say no, but because something about this felt like stepping onto ice she couldn't see through. "Yes," she said finally, "I accept." Vivian gave her an address, a time, instructions. The call ended. Alina stood there for a long moment, the city rushing past her like she was already irrelevant. She told herself this was practical, temporary, a transaction. She was good at transactions. Feelings were expensive. Feelings were luxuries she couldn't afford either. An hour later, she stood in the lobby of a building so sleek it barely felt real. Glass, steel, silence, everything echoed, everything reflected. The receptionist barely looked at her before directing her to the top floor. The elevator ride felt endless. When the doors opened, the hallway was empty. Thick carpet muted her footsteps as she followed the signs to a single door at the end. Dark wood, no nameplate. She raised her hand to knock, stopped. For just a second, doubt crept in, not romantic doubt, not nerves, the deeper kind. The kind that whispered, "This will cost you something." Alina straightened her shoulders. Money had already cost her enough. She knocked and waited. By the time Alina Moore stepped into the glass and steel tower that housed Kavak's Global, her nerves were wound so tight she felt like she might snap in half. The lobby alone was intimidating, polished marble floors, ceilings so high they made her feel smaller with every step, security guards who looked like they'd been trained to spot fear the way dogs smelled it. Which was unfortunate, because fear was exactly what she was carrying. She adjusted the strap of her worn tote bag on her shoulder and approached the reception desk, painfully aware of how out of place she looked among the sharp suits and confident strides of everyone else. "Name?" the receptionist asked, already typing. "Alina Moore, new assistant." The word felt strange in her mouth. Temporary assistant, technically 6 months, long enough to pay off debt, long enough to breathe again. The receptionist glanced up, her expression shifting, something like sympathy mixed with warning. "Top floor," she said, handing Alina a visitor badge. "Elevator C." "He doesn't like being kept waiting." That single word tightened Alina's spine. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Each floor chimed softly as they passed, counting down the seconds to something she couldn't yet name. She used the mirrored walls to smooth her hair, straighten her blazer, rehearse neutrality onto her face. "Don't look desperate. Don't look intimidated. Don't look like you need this job." The doors opened silently onto a floor that felt more like a private domain than an office. Thick carpet muffled her steps. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the city like a possession. A woman with a tablet looked up from a sleek desk. "You're late," she said, not unkindly, observational. "I'm not," Alina replied before thinking, then immediately regretted it. The woman arched a brow. 8:59 is late to him, he likes early. Of course he did. "Follow me," the woman said. "I'm Mara, don't interrupt him, don't over-explain, and whatever you do, don't apologize unless you've actually made a mistake." That was specific. They stopped in front of a large, dark wooden door. No nameplate, no window. Myra knocked once, sharp, controlled. "Come in," came a voice from inside. Low, calm, unemotional, the kind of voice that didn't raise itself because it never needed to. Myra opened the door and gestured Alina forward. "Mr. Kavaks, this is Alina Moore." The office was massive but spare, no clutter, no warmth, just precision. A desk the size of a small dining table. Shelves with carefully arranged files. A single abstract painting that probably cost more than Alina's annual rent. And behind the desk he stood. Tall, impossibly still, dark suit, crisp white shirt, no tie. His sleeves were rolled just enough to reveal strong forearms, but there was nothing casual about him. Everything about his posture said control. His gaze landed on Alina and held. It wasn't predatory, it was worse, it was assessing. Like she was a variable he hadn't decided how to use yet. "You're early," he said. Alina blinked. Your receptionist said." "I know what she said," he replied evenly. "I was testing you." Her jaw tightened. And you corrected her." His eyes flicked briefly to Mara, then back to Alina. "Interesting." Mara cleared her throat. "I'll be outside." The door closed softly behind her. The silence that followed was heavy. "I don't like inefficiency," he said, finally sitting. "Your resume suggests competence, your references suggest discretion. Tell me why you want this job." Alina had practiced this answer all night. I'm good at anticipating needs, she said carefully. I'm organized, I work well under pressure. He leaned back slightly. That's what you do, not why. Her throat tightened. Because I'm about to lose my apartment, because my bank account is a joke, because I need the money more than my pride. Instead, she met his gaze. Because I need stability, she said, and I'm willing to earn it. Something shifted, subtle, almost imperceptible. His eyes lingered a fraction longer than before. Honesty, he murmured. Most people try to impress me. I don't think you'd like that, Elena said before she could stop herself. A pause, then one corner of his mouth lifted, barely. Correct. He picked up a folder. You'll be managing my schedule, filtering communications, coordinating with legal and finance. You'll work long hours. You'll be invisible when necessary and indispensable at all times. Invisible and indispensable, that felt familiar. If you can't handle that, he continued, you should leave now. Elena didn't move. I can handle it? He studied her for another moment, then nodded once. Good, you start today. Today, no adjustment period, no easing in. Your desk is outside, Mara will brief you. I expect silence unless I ask for input. Understood? Yes. She turned to leave. Ms. Moore, her name on his tongue sent a strange, unwelcome shiver down her spine. She faced him again. You're not here because I feel sorry for you, he said quietly. If you fail, I won't hesitate to replace you. I wouldn't expect you to, Elena replied. Something unreadable passed through his eyes. Dismissed. The hours that followed blurred together, emails, calls, schedules that shifted faster than Elena thought possible. She barely had time to breathe, but she didn't miss a single detail. She noticed everything. The way he took calls standing, pacing once before stopping completely, the way he never raised his voice but somehow made people scramble anyway, the way the temperature in the room seemed to change when he entered, and the way he watched her, not constantly, but enough. By late afternoon, her head was pounding and her stomach was reminding her she'd skipped lunch. She was reorganizing his calendar when his office door opened. Ms. Moore, she stood instantly. Yes. Close the door. Her fingers hesitated on the handle before she did as told. The click of the lock echoed louder than it should have. He stepped closer, not invading her space but close enough that she was acutely aware of him. You moved my meeting with Zurich Holdings, he said. Yes, they requested a delay due to, you didn't ask me. I didn't need to, she replied, heart racing. You were double booked. One meeting had flexibility, the other didn't. Silence, then, explain. She did, calmly, logically. She didn't ramble, she didn't apologize. When she finished, he stared at her for a long moment. You made the correct decision, he said. Relief hit her so hard her knees almost weakened. But, he added, stepping closer, lowering his voice, next time you move something that affects my leverage, you tell me first. Yes. His gaze dropped just briefly to her lips. Then back to her eyes. Good. He reached past her to open the door. As she stepped out, she heard him say quietly, almost to himself, interesting. Elena returned to her desk, pulse still racing, unaware that something irreversible had already shifted. This wasn't just a job anymore. It was a test, and she had the distinct, unsettling feeling that she had his attention. By the end of the first week, Elena Moore no longer felt like an outsider. That was the problem. She knew the rhythm of the office now, the subtle rise and fall of tension depending on who was scheduled to meet with Adrian Kavax, the way executives straightened their spines when his door opened, the way conversations died the moment his presence was felt. She also knew him, not personally. Not yet, but she knew his patterns. He drank his coffee black, untouched until the first meeting ended. He worked late every night long after the building emptied. He never spoke about anything that wasn't work, and he never let anyone get close except somehow her. It wasn't intentional. At least not on her part. It started with small things. He asked her opinion. He listened when she spoke. He didn't dismiss her instincts even when they challenged his. And then came the late nights. The city lights outside his office window blurred into constellations as Elena typed quietly at her desk, the rest of the floor long abandoned. Sometimes hours would pass without a word between them, just the steady hum of productivity and something else, an awareness she refused to name. One night, close to 10, she finally stood. "I finished the briefing you asked for," she said softly. He looked up from his screen. "You should go home." She hesitated. "You've been here since 6, that's irrelevant." She surprised herself. "You're human, that makes it relevant." Silence. He studied her like she'd spoken a foreign language. "Sit," he said instead of responding. She did. "You don't leave when I dismiss you," he said. "I leave when the work is done. And if I say it is, then I'll stay," she replied evenly. Something shifted. He leaned back, exhaling slowly through his nose. "You don't fear me." Alina chose her words carefully. "I respect you. Fear doesn't make people work better." A beat. Then, quietly, "Most people disagree." She didn't answer that. She didn't need to. The second week changed everything. It began with a mistake. A real one, a confidential document flagged, encrypted, sent to the wrong internal channel. Alina realized it the second she hit send. Her stomach dropped. She was out of her chair in seconds, already undoing it, locking access, calling it damage contained, barely. Her hands were still shaking when Adrian's door opened. "Ms. Moore," she stood. "I made an error." His brow lifted slightly. "Explain." She did, fully, honestly, no excuses. When she finished, she waited, for anger, for cold dismissal, for the reminder that she was replaceable. Instead, he was quiet. "Then, why didn't you hide it?" "I won't lie to you. Everyone lies to me," he said flatly. "Then that's their weakness," she replied, pulse racing. "Not mine." He stepped closer, not looming, not threatening. Close enough that she could see the faint scar near his jaw, the exhaustion he hid well. "You could lose this job," he said. "I know. Why take the risk?" "Because I need this job," she said softly, "but I won't lose myself to keep it." Something in his eyes darkened, not anger, something far more dangerous. That night the storm hit. The city disappeared behind sheets of rain, thunder cracking so close it rattled the windows. Power flickered, then steadied. The building emptied early, everyone but them. Alina was gathering her things when the lights dimmed again, then went out entirely. Darkness swallowed the floor. Emergency lights blinked on, low and amber. Her breath caught. "Stay where you are," Adrian's voice came from the darkness. "I can see," she replied, steadying herself. Footsteps, closer. Then he was there, emerging from the shadows like he belonged to them. "The elevators are down," he said. "Security says it could be an hour." Alina nodded. Okay, that was all. No panic, no complaint. You're calm," he observed. "I grew up without certainty," she said. "Dark doesn't scare me." That made him pause. "Come into my office," he said. "It's safer." She followed him inside. The emergency lighting cast the room in shadows, softening the sharp edges, making everything feel intimate, too intimate. He closed the door behind them. The click was louder in the quiet. Locked. Alina noticed, tried not to. "Sit," he said again, quieter this time. She perched on the edge of the chair. He didn't return to his desk. Instead, he stood in front of the window, city lights flickering weakly below. "You didn't ask why I work this way," he said suddenly. She frowned slightly. "You don't seem like someone who enjoys being asked personal questions." "No," he agreed, "but you notice." She waited. "I built everything myself," he continued. "Every inch, every dollar. I learned early that emotion is a liability." She met his gaze. "Only if you let it control you." Thunder cracked. He turned toward her slowly. "And what if I do?" The air changed. She felt it. Tension coiled tight, electric. "You don't let anyone close," she said quietly. He took a step closer. "Neither do you." Her breath hitched. He was close now, close enough that she could smell him, clean, sharp, something dark beneath it. "This is a mistake," she whispered. "Yes," he agreed. He reached out, not touching her, bracing his hand against the desk beside her, trapping her without actually trapping her. "But you're still here." "So are you." Another step. The space between them disappeared. The storm outside raged, thunder rolling like a warning. "Tell me to stop," he said, voice low. She looked up at him, heart pounding. He lifted a hand, hesitating inches from her face. Elena, her name soft, controlled, intimate, something shattered, the power surged back on with a sharp hum, lights flooded the room, reality snapped into place. He stepped back instantly, expression closed, controlled once more. I shouldn't have, he started. I know, she said, standing. I shouldn't either. Silence stretched between them, thick with what almost happened. The intercom crackled. Power restored, elevators operational. He nodded once. You should go. She gathered her things, hands trembling not from fear, from want. At the door she paused. This doesn't change anything, she said. His voice was rough. It changes everything. She left, and neither of them slept that night. After the night of the storm, nothing went back to normal. It couldn't. Elena felt it the moment she stepped into the office the next morning, the air heavier, charged with everything that had gone unsaid. She could still hear her name in her head, the way he'd whispered it, like it meant something dangerous, like it mattered. Adrian Kovacs didn't look at her when she arrived, not once. He was colder than before, if that was even possible. Every word clipped, every interaction stripped of warmth, of pauses, of those fleeting moments where his control had slipped. It hurt more than she expected. Because now she knew what lived beneath the ice, and he was pretending it didn't exist. The distance lasted 3 days, 3 days of professional silence, of carefully neutral emails, of instructions relayed through Mara even when Elena sat 10 feet away. 3 days of Elena reminding herself why she'd taken this job in the first place. Money, survival, nothing more. On the 4th day, everything exploded. The board meeting was supposed to be routine. It was. Elena was seated at the far end of the conference table, notes perfectly aligned, heart steady, until she noticed the name on the agenda. Victor Hale. Her stomach dropped. Hale was infamous. A ruthless investor with a talent for dismantling companies from the inside. She'd researched him weeks ago and flagged him as a potential threat. Adrian had dismissed it. Now he was here. The meeting started politely enough, but it didn't stay that way. I'll be frank, Hale said, fingers steepled. Your expansion plan is ambitious, Mr. Kovacs, too ambitious, your bleeding capital. Adrian's voice was cool. Your projections rely on trust, Hale interrupted, and trust is fragile. Elena watched Adrian's jaw tighten. This wasn't just business, this was personal. Hale's gaze shifted to her. And who is this? He asked lightly. The new assistant. Adrian stiffened. That's irrelevant, is it? Hale smiled thinly. I hear you keep interesting company these days. Something sharp cut through Elena's chest. She knew that look. Threat. Hale leaned back. Careful, Adrian, distractions can be costly. Before Elena could stop herself, she spoke. With respect, she said evenly, your concern seems misplaced. The data supports the expansion. I can walk you through it. The room went silent. Adrian's head snapped toward her. Hale blinked, surprised, then amused. Bold, she's right, Adrian said sharply. And you will not speak about my staff that way. Hale smiled wider, defensive, interesting. The meeting ended 10 minutes later, unresolved, tense. The moment the boardroom cleared, Adrian turned to Elena. What were you thinking? He demanded. She met his glare, protecting the company. You overstepped? He was baiting you, she shot back, and you let him. Silence. Then Adrian's voice dropped. My office. Now the door slammed shut behind them. He locked it. This time, she noticed. You embarrassed me, he said. You let him threaten us, she replied. I won't stay silent just to make you comfortable. You don't get to decide. I get to decide who I am, she interrupted, and I won't be invisible when something matters. The tension snapped. Adrian crossed the room in 3 long strides. You're playing a dangerous game, he said lowly. So are you. They were close, too close. His control was fraying. I told you emotion is a liability, he said, and yet, she whispered, you can't seem to get rid of me. His breath hitched. That night, he said, voice rough, should never have happened, but it did. I don't cross lines. You did, she said, and you wanted to. The truth hung between them, heavy, undeniable. Adrian reached out, gripping the edge of the desk hard enough his knuckles went white. I won't ruin you, he said fiercely. I won't take something I can't give back. I'm not fragile, she replied, and I'm not asking you to save me. She stepped closer. I'm asking you to stop pretending you don't feel this. Thunder rolled faintly in the distance, echoes of the storm that had started it all. Adrian closed his eyes, then opened them, and the cold billionaire mask finally shattered. He cupped her face, hands firm but reverent, as if afraid she'd disappear. "Alina," he said, voice breaking, "you have no idea what you do to me." She leaned into his touch. "Then show me." He kissed her, not gently, not carefully. It was raw, desperate, full of everything he'd been holding back. The kind of kiss that erased doubt and consequence in one breathless moment. She kissed him back just as fiercely, hands in hair, bodies colliding, months of restraint dissolving in seconds. He pulled back abruptly, forehead pressed to hers, breathing hard. "This changes things," he said. "Yes, you could lose your job, I know, you could lose me." She met his eyes. "I already have you." That was it. The last wall fell. He lifted her onto the desk, hands everywhere but never careless, never disrespectful. Every touch asked permission, every kiss lingered like a promise. When he whispered her name again, it wasn't a test, it was surrender. The fallout came fast. Victor Hale leaked rumors, the board questioned boundaries. HR demanded answers. Adrian didn't hide. He stood in front of them all and said plainly, "I won't apologize for choosing honesty over control." He offered Alina a choice: stay with transparency, risk, and a future that would never be simple. Or leave with a severance generous enough to change her life. She didn't hesitate. "I choose to stay," she said, "but only if we do this right." They did. The city looked different from Adrian Kavaks's penthouse, not because it had changed, but because Alina had. She stood by the window, wrapped in one of his shirts, watching the lights blur together below. It was late, too late, the kind of late that made confessions feel unavoidable. Behind her, Adrian set two glasses on the counter. He hadn't said much since they'd left the office together for the first time, without pretense or restraint, not boss and assistant, not power and proximity, just two people who had finally stopped lying. "You don't have to stay," he said quietly. She turned. "That's the second time you've given me an exit," she said. "You seem determined to keep proving you're not a villain." His mouth curved faintly. "I don't want to own you, I want you to choose." Alina walked toward him slowly. "I already did." She took the glass from his hand but didn't drink. Instead, she set it aside and reached for him, really reached for him this time, without hesitation or fear. "I took this job because I needed money," she said. "I stayed because I needed dignity. And somewhere along the way," her voice softened, "I found you." Adrian's composure cracked, not dramatically, not loudly, but in the way his hand tightened at her waist, like he was grounding himself. "I built my life on control," he said, "on not needing anyone. And then you walked in and challenged me without ever trying to." She smiled gently. "You noticed." "I notice everything about you," he said. "That's the problem, that's the point," she corrected. He leaned his forehead against hers. "I won't promise you easy," he said, "or simple. Or safe." "I don't want safe," she replied. "I want real." That did it. He kissed her again, slower now, deeper, not desperate but certain, a kiss that said this wasn't an escape or a rebellion, it was a decision. The next morning, the world responded exactly as expected. Headlines speculated, the board demanded reassurance. HR finalized protocols, every risk was documented, dissected, analyzed. Adrian faced it all without flinching. But the moment Alina walked into the office, head high, posture steady, no shame in her step, something shifted. People noticed, not the scandal, the certainty. She wasn't hiding. She wasn't clinging to his name or power. She was standing beside him, by choice. By the end of the week, Adrian made it official, not with a press release, with action. Alina was promoted publicly, transparently, into a role she had already been performing without recognition. Strategy, operations, authority. No whispers, no favoritism, just earned ground. He didn't touch her in the office, didn't look at her too long, didn't claim her where others could see. But every night, behind closed doors, he let himself be hers in ways he never had with anyone. And every morning, she reminded him that vulnerability wasn't weakness, it was trust. Months passed, the city cooled, the noise faded, And one evening, long after the last meeting ended, Adrian closed his office door and didn't lock it this time. He walked to Alina's desk. "Come home with me," he said. She looked up, smiling. "That wasn't a question." "No," he agreed, "it's a habit." They didn't rush, they never rushed anymore. At his penthouse, the city lights framed them like a secret they no longer had to hide. He poured wine. She kicked off her heels. "You ever think about that first night?" she asked. "The storm," he said. "The door," she corrected softly. "The way you said my name." His gaze darkened, not with control but memory. "I think about it every day," he admitted. "Because that was the moment I stopped being alone." She crossed the space between them and took his hand. "And I stopped running." The future didn't arrive in grand gestures, it arrived in quiet mornings and shared calendars, in arguments that ended in understanding instead of silence. In the way he listened now, really listened when she spoke. In the way she challenged him without fear. And one night, standing by the same window where she'd first watched the city from his world, Adrian sank to one knee. Alina laughed before she cried. "Are you serious?" she whispered. "I've never been more certain of anything," he said. "You didn't just walk into my life, you rewrote it." She didn't let him finish. Yes, the city glowed below them, indifferent and endless, but inside that penthouse everything felt steady, chosen, real.